You're listening to Tara Lynn's A Geek Saga podcast. This episode features audio from a previously aired live video webcast. So, hi, I'm Tara Lynn of Geek Saga Entertainment, and welcome to episode 4 of my 2001 Walt Disney World College Program 20-year reunion series. This episode is about how we finally began to actually settle in for our college program, particularly after the events of 9/11, and it's also a Halloween special. As you can see, we are wearing costumes, sort of, and we'll be talking quite a bit about living and working at Disney around Halloween. I am joined by Nikki. So, Nikki, if you want to introduce yourself. And since you haven't been on before, if you have any social media that's public that people can follow, tell us what you're dressed as. And I don't know, a little bit about like how you ended up on the college program and whether you're fall, I think just fall, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you were just fall. And, where you worked and stuff like that, just a little bit of background on your history for the CP since we haven't had you on before.
Sure. So I'm Nikki. I don't really have any social media platforms or anything. I did the fall program and just fall, which was enough.
Yeah,
lots of craziness going on. I actually just kind of was like in college and just kind of doing my thing, and I love Disney. And I had a friend that had done the program and was like, you should totally like do it. Just like take a semester off, figure out, like just get away, like figure out like what do you want to do. And best decision ever, best, meeting friends and just being away from home for the first time and just like everything that we like dealt with and stuff with like September 11th. And so definitely the best experience I ever had being away like in college and stuff. I worked at Blizzard Beach and merchandise, so a little bit different. And I think it helped. I was like separate from like the Disney Magic kind of. So when I went to Magic Kingdom, it was still so like, oh, there's the castle and, the characters. And it never got old for me when I went to the parks. Being at Blizzard Beach, I mean, there's Disney theming, but it wasn't, we had our own theme, our own thing. So being in a water park, it's just, it wasn't like Magic Kingdom. Magic. Yeah. So, and I don't think, we like sold Roxy stuff in there, and it wasn't, we had maybe some like Mickey Mouse like items, but it was definitely more Blizzard Beach and like the little, it was like an alligator, I think was like the mascot. Yeah. It was like skiing or something. So
you said you sold what stuff? Roxy stuff?
Yeah, like Roxy and Quicksilver. Because it was like a surf shop kind of.
Roxy the brand. I'm trying to think of like a character, and I'm not getting it.
So it was like we were, and it was a little bit different, but also working in a water park, we shut down for rehab, like in the wintertime. So I also like went over to Typhoon Lagoon, and then they shut down. I went to Wide Water Sports and did one of the marathons and helped out there. And then I went to Epcot and I worked at Mouse Gears. I think they changed the name of that, but it was Mouse Gears then. And that was like, holy crap, I'm not used to this huge building. There was an elevator, like you took the elevator up. I remember one time somebody wanted the box for a picture frame. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, just take the elevator to like the 5th floor and do this. And I'm like, for a box? And then it's like, you got to go down to the basement for, your lunch break. And I was, blown away. I was like, people do this all the time. Like, I'm so used to my little store. And then we like sold lockers over here. And that's all I did for my program. So it was kind of crazy to like go over to Epcot, this huge store with like just Disney everywhere, princess dresses and, just Disney everything. So it was really cool.
I didn't know they had an elevator in Mouse Gear.
Yeah, that place is huge. It's so big. Yeah.
It's, because on the surface, it's just one floor. So do they have like a basement or something?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay,
so I'm not sure. I'm trying to think how many floors it was, but I know like the break room was in the basement. So like you had to go all the way down. But I'm not sure if like how many, like if you went down or like it was just big. And I was like,
Wow,
just so
crazy.
overwhelmed. I'm used to, one little store. We had the back room, like you totally can find something in like 2 seconds to like restock. And we pretty much had most of the stuff out there, except for like little like keychains or something, you might have to restock.
Mhm.
But and then like cleaning up at the end of the night and just like, resetting everything. It was just like, we're going to be here for hours.
Oh,
That
I
was pretty
can't
crazy.
imagine. I mean, I had friends that worked in like along Main Street. I can't remember the name of the big shop on Main Street in Magic Kingdom, but I mean, on nights they had stocking and stuff, they didn't get out till 4 a.m., I think. Um, that must have been such I can't imagine the huge change going from like the sort of laid back Blizzard
And,
Beach, like good hours atmosphere. Do
and
you
there was
know was
only
the
there was
Go
only
ahead.
two of us, only two CPs.
Oh yeah.
And so like, when our hours were like being cut and people, it was, I think the part-time for after September 11th, the part-time people, they pretty much kind of like lost their job, and because they had to make room for us, because like
Mhm.
we weren't going anywhere as far as CPs. So, and there was just the two of us. And so I mostly work with like managers and people who've been like senior,
Yeah,
people who've been
same.
there. And it's just like not much going on for a while, it seemed like. I actually got introduced. I know it's not Disney, but I got introduced to like Harry Potter because we sold books in like in the gift shop, and somebody bought the book and like would read it out loud to us, and like that's how much downtime we had. It was like
Wow.
we had story time, and like the first book of Harry Potter was like something different. It was kind of
Yeah. Oh
strange.
gosh, that's so fun. So do you know, this is a kind of random question. Do you know if they were planning, because I can't remember, were they planning on Blizzard Beach going into rehab, or was that something that happened? Oh, they were. Okay.
Yeah, that I'm pretty sure that happens every year. I think it goes into rehab as far as like um fixing things, or because it's just winter time. And so
Mhm.
I know it was after Christmas because I worked Christmas Day, and it was freezing that day, and we had maybe five
Yes, I
people, and we
remember.
closed like at noon, so I got to go home early. Because I mean, I totally forgot to switch out my costume, so I had like, you normally wear shorts and like your shirt or whatever, and you had like a windbreaker as your jacket.
Mhm.
And then you could get pants, but like nobody ever wore the pants because it was hot. And then
Mhm.
because it was a holiday, you couldn't go in there. Everybody was off, so I was stuck still wearing my shorts, and I was making pants out of towels, like the towels that we would give out. And I literally had like white towels wrapped around my shorts because nobody was there, so it was like nobody was going to see me, selling lockers. So it was just like we were just like covered trying to make blankets out of these towels and stuff. It was so funny. But
Yeah, I
that was
mean,
like
I
Christmas.
it was so like it was still so hot at Disney, through September, October, obviously. We got really lucky, and we'll talk more about this on the next episode when we talk about like the actual holiday season, like Thanksgiving and Christmas and the craziness from that.
Mhm.
But I mean, we got really lucky, I think, that fall because we only had, from what I remember, a handful of days where it was actually cold. I mean, I definitely remember hanging out at the pool at Vista in mid-December, and it was,
Mhm.
85 degrees out, 80 degrees out. So,
Yeah, that's
um,
why it was like so weird. It's just like Christmas Day was like freezing, and I'm like, I've been wearing shorts and my little, windbreaker if I really needed it. So that was kind of crazy. Um, and like for Halloween, I know we went to that really awesome party. That
yeah,
was really
we'll get into that because I wanna, since we have introduced you, I'm just gonna kind of remind everybody, as I already mentioned, I'm Tara. I am today dressed up as, you could call me Iago if you want, but what I was really going for is a tiki room parrot. Let's say I'm Fritz, because I don't think I should be Jose for obvious reasons. And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at A Geek Saga, and on the web at geeksaga.com. Now, since Nikki was already going into the fun stuff we did for Halloween, just real quick, I want to talk about finally, and since you weren't on, for our September 11th episode last month, I want to talk about finally like actually settling in for our college program after everything changed, after September 11th. First, just work stuff. And I guess so you were still at Blizzard Beach through
Mhm.
October, right?
It was. through little after Christmas.
Mm,
I remember I
okay.
started switching around different places by January. Like the
Oh,
last
okay.
few weeks, I wasn't, yeah, I was being bounced around.
So did you guys have, I'm guessing the answer is no. Did you guys have any Halloween stuff that went on at Blizzard Beach, like any decorations or anything? I
Not that I can remember. I don't remember even like, I'm trying to think even like for Christmas. I don't remember.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't remember us doing really anything different.
I know that they go all out at Magic Kingdom, obviously, but I honestly don't remember there being much Halloween stuff at the other parks. I feel like it's
Mm-mm.
mostly Magic Kingdom that just goes all out. But so I mean, work wise, after September 11th, it's like we had kind of all started settling in for our college programs right before September 11th happened, but then everything changed, which we talked about a lot last month. And I know for me, it was shortened park hours and nearly empty parks,
Mm-hmm.
which made for, you know, early nights getting off work at Magic Kingdom 7:30, 7:45 is very early. And a max of like 32 hours a week. Usually, sometimes if I was lucky, I would get a long day on a Saturday and then end up with 40 hours a week. But that didn't really start happening until probably like mid-October or later even. So at Blizzard Beach, because you guys were already on kind of that, the park closed at what, 6 or something? So
Yeah,
did
I
you
was trying to think
see a
like
big
5 or 6.
change?
As far as our hours, I don't remember us closing any earlier. Like I just know like my hours, they pretty much try to like keep us. Like I said, like the part-time people, unfortunately, they kind of like their jobs kind of went away to make room for any CPs that were still in the program and didn't leave. Um, but as far as like operating hours, I'm pretty sure it stayed the same because we closed early, like, because it wasn't open at night. So I want to say like
Yeah,
5 or 6 o'clock, it was starting to.
yeah, I feel like my neighbor worked quick service at Blizzard Beach, and I feel like he was always home by, a little after 6 or something like that. Um, so I mean, I guess, and so you were already kind of lucky in that you would only work these sort of earlier hours. So you didn't have much change there. But the parks being so empty for a while after 9/11 definitely made for a lot of good like playtime because
Mhm.
they were so empty. We went, I mean, I don't know about you, but I went a lot. I would say that Kim, my roommate, and I, who's been on the last couple episodes, her and I would go to Hollywood Studios, which was still MGM back then, to ride just Tower and Coaster. I want to say at least once a week on one of our days off, pretty much all like the end of September and through October, and probably even the first part of November up until the holiday craziness started. So, do you think you went to the parks more or did more stuff like that because they were not as busy?
Yeah, I mean, I remember, and my roommate Jamie and I, we went to the parks all the time. She wouldn't ride Tower, but she would ride Rock and Roller Coaster. And then my upstairs neighbor, who was like a bestie to me, he worked Rock and Roller Coaster, so he would get us like kind of like the backstage area, and so we'd always, we never had to wait in line if he was working. He'd always kind of like sneak us in, so we would go there a lot, and so yeah, we went to Hollywood Studios a lot. But I mean, I even remember just going to the parks, going to Epcot, just let's go to Mexico for dinner. It's
Mhm.
like, we always have
You
really
just
great,
walk in.
yeah. I mean, I just don't remember. I mean, the time frame, it just wasn't crowded. So, I mean, you didn't really have, the wait times weren't that bad for anything. You didn't feel like overwhelmed with crowds back then because, just people weren't traveling at all. And then, I mean, we would even go to like on my days off, go to Blizzard Beach and,
Mhm.
and hang out. But I mean, it was just like, I just felt like we had the parks to ourselves. It was kind of crazy until
Oh, for
probably about
sure.
around Thanksgiving, things started to kind of pick up. So,
Yeah, and did you ever pick up extra hours anywhere?
so that thing, like we didn't. I never really, I enjoyed my 2 days off, and they were
Yeah.
usually like Monday, Tuesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday. I still had classes. I didn't do the Disney classes. I had classes from back home. So I still had like computer lab, and I had to study and stuff. So I enjoyed my 2 days off.
Yeah.
But I actually had a friend that was in the international program, and he like never took a day off. And after September 11th, they had to start taking, he couldn't pick up any shifts because there weren't any, because of all like the reduced hours and stuff. So a lot of people who were really trying to like bank that money to send back home, that's kind of like why they were there with the international program. They lost all those extra hours, but I enjoyed my days off, and I usually had at least one day of studying and in the computer lab doing papers and whatever, and then like the next day would be
computer lab.
I know I didn't have a computer.
I had a laptop, but it was like no, I had a
Mm-hmm.
desktop. I had a
Yeah.
desktop. Oh my
I don't even think
God.
we had laptops back then. 20 years ago.
They did, but they were bricks. They were
Ugh.
huge. I mean, like huge and so heavy. I think a laptop back then probably weighed almost as much as my freaking desktop did. I had a desktop. I had forgotten about that. It sat in our living room on one of the coffee table or end tables. Like I put it in the corner on one of the end tables, and I sat on the floor to use it. And this is something it's not to do much with this part of the college program, but I totally forgot about it and forgot to mention it. But you mentioning that you still had classes at home, like from your college or whatever. I didn't have those, but I was supposed to take one of the CP classes that they offered. And I didn't I went to one, and then I was like, nah, I want my days off. And I quit it. And then I don't think I'm pretty sure I never told work that I quit the class, so that my days were always set as Wednesday, Thursday, or Tuesday. Like I always had Wednesday off. So it's like, at least I always knew one of my 2 days off. But I can't believe I totally forgot about that until you started talking about school stuff. That's so funny.
Yeah. Because my program, well, like me signing up for the college program, I was a biology major. Going to Disney had nothing to do with, I wasn't getting any credit. I had to like go down to part-time at school. And of course, my parents were totally against it. They're like, what are you doing? I lost all of my scholarships. I was just, but it was, in the end, it was worth it. And I actually met, and so 20 years ago, we had these cute little Disney like chat rooms and stuff. And like in the computer lab at school, we could find out other people who were going to Disney. And I don't remember how you would do that, but like through your school, you could find out who else was going at the same time. And I knew a person, like I met somebody and was talking to them, never met them on campus, but I knew like their screen name or whatever. And he ended up being my across the way neighbor's like coworker. And so they were talking and stuff, and come to find out, oh, you're from Virginia, oh, blah, blah, blah. It's like, wait, are you so-and-so? It's like, whatever his name was. And so getting to talk to him, he was a raconteur major and loved it and stuff. And he was like, well, I can have you like talk to my advisor, and, if you want to switch majors and all this other stuff, and then you can get credit for this. And I'm like, yeah, I hated like all my professors. I wanted to be a biology major, and I wanted to actually be a dolphin trainer at SeaWorld, and because that was like a huge career back then, and make lots of money. But so yeah, I ended up changing majors while I was at Disney, and they got it switched so that like all my credits worked, and then I got credit for an internship.
Oh, that's cool.
So I didn't sign up for any of the Disney classes because I wasn't getting I don't even know if I could, because I wasn't getting credit for it at my school.
Yeah, I would have gotten more credits for I did get credits for it. I ended up getting, I think, 6 credits for it, which is like nothing, but it's better. It's better than none at all. If I had done the course, I think they would have given me 9, maybe 12 even. But regardless, like it wasn't, and I was in the same boat. I had a full scholarship, and I had to give that up by, doing the college program. But I did that because I knew I wasn't going to go back to that school full time. I literally I went back for the spring semester No, shoot, I didn't. No, I didn't. I was going to say, I think I planned on going back for the spring semester and then transferring after that, but I didn't even bother because it was too expensive. But I'll get into that more in future webcasts. But for now, I mean, I did, so I mean, I guess since Blizzard Beach didn't do any, Halloween stuff, like I will say it was really fun working. Disney has the late night parties at Magic Kingdom, and part of it, in a way, it sucked because working Mickey's Not So Scary meant all of a sudden my coveted 1:30 to 7:30 or 1:45 to 7:45 schedule on the days when Mickey's Not So Scary was happening. It was like 6 to past midnight or whatever. But I had some really good times like working that, seeing the guests in their costumes and the parade, the which I think they've changed since then. I went to Mickey's Not So Scary on a family trip to Disney in 2013, and the parade was weird. I was like, this is not the parade that I remember. It was way more like family friendly, and it didn't, I don't know, like the floats of the villains weren't highlighted as much. The music was entirely different. I missed if they had the Headless Horseman ride. So they might still have that, at least. I don't know. Well, I guess now it's probably totally different, but back in 2013 I remember just being like, this is lame. This is not the parade I remember. But yeah, so I got to work a lot of the parade at Mickey's Not So Scary. Did you go to that at all when you were on the college program?
No. I was actually recently talking to Jamie, my roommate, and it's like how much we got paid and stuff. And I was like, we got paid enough. Like, I only had my cell phone bill as far as I can remember, is like having something extra. And then like our rent was taken out, from our paycheck and stuff. And then I pretty much had, enough money for gas because I had my car with me.
Yeah,
I had, gas and then groceries and stuff. And it was like, but I just remember like just always being poor and like, I always wanted to go to SeaWorld and I couldn't afford to go to SeaWorld or Universal or any, so I know I definitely wouldn't have been able to afford going to that party, but I definitely wanted to.
Yeah, I think they did offer, they offered, I want to say the tickets were really cheap, like 30 or $35, but when you're working only like 32 hours a week at $6 an hour and having $67 a week taken out for rent and whatnot, that 30, $35, that's groceries for 2 weeks probably, or a week and a half, something like that. So I mean, I worked it so much, it was like the nights I would have been able to go, because that, like, it was always weeknights that they had it on sale like that, and the nights that I would have been able to go, I was working anyway. But I mean, I got to see it, from the cast member point of view, and it was a really fun one to work. Way more fun than the Christmas one, honestly, but I don't want to get into that right now. So like partying, because we talked about work hours being less or better shifts or whatever, which you kind of already had anyway, like, so you were all set. But
and being like a CP and like I said, there was only the two of us, and we weren't opening, we weren't coming in and opening up. So I feel like I would, come in at like maybe 10 or 11, and like work till close. So that there was always somebody there. And even like right in, August, September time when we were still like really busy and stuff, we had like a little shack right outside of the main merchandise place, and we had like sunglasses and sunscreen and like water shoes and stuff like that. And so you worked in like inside the main shop, you come out to the hut, and then you had lockers, and so you had like that 3 rotation thing. And I remember like sometimes if I came in early, like, and then you get your bump to go the next, and it's like, oh, it's time for lunch, and I'm like, I don't want to eat lunch at 10 o'clock in the morning, like I just got here. So we'd always have to like trade off and stuff. But I don't think I had too many like early mornings, and we closed at a decent time, so I pretty much just worked like mid-morning to close. So.
Yeah, Yeah, that's
It was
how it was when
pretty
I worked
easy.
at Animal Kingdom the next year. So, but also those, even then, like the mid mornings would have sucked. I really liked not having to start until one something in the afternoon,
Mhm.
especially. So, I mean, yeah, because of the hours being, kind of short and earlier. I mean, for you, it's kind of automatically already earlier, but the party lifestyle like really kicked it up a big notch for me after September 11th. And I went to, I think it was Monday night party or Sunday night parties. Kim is in the chat. Kim is in the chat, and I need her to remind me. There were definitely like there was either Sunday night. I think it was Sunday night in Building 15, but it could have been Monday. I'm having one of those rhymey things where it was one or the other, right? And so we became, just kind of regulars at those parties and everything. Even if we had to work the next day, it wasn't until like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So it didn't matter. And getting off early, just made it easier even on any other random night. So, okay, I get home from work by 8:30, 9 at the extreme latest, and I'm, changed and freshened up and ready to be somewhere by 9:30.
Mhm.
And that's nothing when you're 18, 19, or I think you
I
were a
was
little
20.
older. Yeah.
I still
Like,
wasn't even 21, so
um, so yeah, that it's nothing to not start the party until, 9:30 or 10 when you're that age.
yeah. And I lived in Chatham, which was not like the party,
No,
place.
I
And
know.
so, um, it was definitely kind of like, you would get home from work and just kind of like feel it out. Um, and we, with the phone system, you could just call like another apartment, but we also had cell phones. But I don't
Mm.
remember, not like today where you're just like texting somebody, where's the party at? It was just kind of like you really had to make some type of effort because I wasn't 21 and you weren't supposed to be drinking if you were under 21. So then it's kind of
Lol.
like, the honor system, because people would like, would have a party and they would have like, at least in Chatham, they would have like a note, like if you're under 21, like you can't come in. And I'm just like, whatever, or like we're still coming in. But and then I remember just being, partying a little too much and then trying to like sneak from security because you don't want to get caught and get kicked out. And I don't know if they actually really cared that much, but when you've had a few drinks and you just, sneaking around in the bushes and stuff, trying to get back to, back
I
to
don't
your
know if they
apartment.
cared enough to. I think if you got caught doing something wrong or like even just puking in the bushes and you're
Mhm.
under 21, you probably would have been ousted. But they didn't, unless they came to break up a party and they started carting everyone there, which that actually happened at a couple parties I was at.
Mm.
And I remember us just like sneak, sneak, sneak,
Mhm.
like away from the building, and we're just like, tee, we got away from security. It only happened, I think, once or twice the entire time I was on the college program. But yeah, good times being underage and partying at Vista or whatever.
I think I
Honestly.
only went to one party at Vista and I didn't know anybody. And I was like, these people are crazy. and and then I went to like one party at the international apartments because that was like
Mhm.
in between. So
Right.
we could just walk over there. Um, but I definitely like it was just kind of like a word of mouth or somebody was like, hey, so and so is having a party, or like in my building there's
Yeah.
a party, like come on over. Um, and I think Jamie through working like Jungle Cruise,
Yeah.
we did a couple parties, through her crew or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, I definitely did my share of partying, but like I don't know. It always just like from my memory, it was just like so random. Like it wasn't,
Yeah.
it was literally come home and like try and find out, what are we doing tonight type of thing. And then I don't remember ever having to like really get up early in the morning and so I could just kind of like ease into the day and then go to work and stuff. So it wasn't really that big a deal, especially when you're
Yeah.
20.
Oh gosh, yeah, it's so much easier to recover when you're that young. Oh god.
Yeah,
I think
not
about
20 years later.
I think
No.
about what I used to drink back then and how late I would stay up drinking bourbon and cokes and fucking Beast Light, like Milwaukee's
Oh,
Best Light, and I would wake up the next day and like some days it was a little bit rough, but most days it was just wake up, drink a bunch of water, suck it up and go to work and you're fine, right? You know, like it was really rare that I felt so awful and hungover at work. And now I'm thinking back on what I used to do and just, if I were to drink like that, like bourbon and Coke and a whole bunch of really super cheap beer, I don't think I have not tasted a Bud, Coors, Miller, Milwaukee's Best, Natty, whatever. I haven't tasted any of those beers in probably 15 years or more.
Oh, wow.
No, I lie. I think I stopped drinking Miller Lite. It was a little later with like I was still drinking Miller Lite until maybe 2008, 2009, but probably 2008 for sure. So a little less than 15 years. But yeah, my God, how? I miss that body.
I remember, and I thought he was like my age, but my upstairs neighbor, who was like one of my besties, he might have been 21 because I remember I think there was a convenience store over by Vista Way.
Yep. Well, there was a gas station, but there's also Walgreens, and they had like an ABC store right there.
Because I remember he would get like the 24 pack of whatever the cheapest beer was, like $5 for like this mass amount of disgusting beer, and like
it was for sure Natty or Beast Light, like for sure.
Like really, that's what we're doing, okay? You know, it's like even then it was kind of like everybody putting their money together, you know, and like having somebody do a beer run, and yeah, why?
Oh my gosh, I mean, that's the thing though, when you're working. You know, if you're lucky, you're working 40 hours a week at $6 an hour, even with no state taxes taken out and everything. You drink the cheap shit, man. Like people make fun of me for still drinking like cheap vodka and stuff. And I'm just like, listen, it all goes down the same and it all like feels the same. I mean, I could drink a $13 like vodka from a $13 handle and I'm going to feel just as shitty if I drink vodka from a, you know, $30 big bottle of Smirnoff or whatever. Now, maybe if it was like really expensive stuff, whatever, it would be better. But okay, so enough about the just random parties because we still need to talk about Halloween. So, and I have, you know, just kind of a couple Halloween stories and mostly like, well, I don't know. See, did you go to any CP Halloween parties like at Chatham or Vista?
I don't think so.
I didn't, weirdly enough.
I mean, I remember only like dressing up for that one party and then and I still couldn't even like come up with a costume. I still don't know. I think I tried to pretend I was like Britney Spears or something. I'm like looking at the outfit and I remember just kind of like, I don't know, like I didn't have any costumes with me and I just kind of like threw something together and I was like, I'm a pop star or something. I don't know. Super random. So I don't remember and it might have been like, oh, I don't have a costume and it was like a costume party or something. So I think if I got invited, I probably was like, I don't have a costume or, you know, type of thing, or I'm not going to dress up because I'm too cool to, you know, be like that or something. But yeah, I don't remember any random like, you know, house parties or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I went to an actual Halloween party, which I'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, I know that Halloween parties at Vista existed. It might have been that I probably stopped in late at night, you know, after working Mickey's Not So Scary or something and just didn't bother. I certainly didn't bother dressing up and or anything like that. And like, whatever, that's fine. Because I probably, if I got there, it would have been toward the tail end of anything that was happening if it was after working Mickey's Not So Scary. But the big one is that we both went to the Adventureland Liberty Square, aka Ad-Lib Halloween party. And it was a cast members party, but for Ad-Lib, but you could bring one guest. And it's funny because I brought my roommate Kim and Jamie, because I worked at Pirates and Jamie worked at Jungle Cruise, so both Adventureland, and Jamie brought you. Yes. I'm going the wrong way. For anybody listening to this on the podcast, I'm like, Jamie brought you, and I'm pointing at nothing. I think I'm pointing at like sort of Baby Yoda Vista in my background. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, I should have been pointing the other way at Nikki. So it was actually kind of funny that we're the two people on this webcast, and like I brought my roommate and you're the roommate that Jamie brought. And I had met you, I believe, before this, but this was the first time the four of us like really hung out.
Yeah.
And I feel like we went to a friend's apartment before we went to the party, because we have pictures of us at somebody's house and it was definitely not Vista or Chatham. But that's one of those, like, I don't remember this at all, but I'm looking at the pictures and knowing that that's not Chatham or Vista.
I have the picture of the four of us, but I kind of remember that there was like group pictures, but I don't think I have them or I haven't seen them.
They're definitely on my Facebook. And I maybe, you know what I'll do? I'm going to share when I post this on my website, when I post the podcast entry, I'm going to share some of the pictures in that entry. And, you know, just warning everybody, don't judge us on what we look like in 2001 or what we were wearing. Or, I mean, you looked great, honestly, but I don't even want to think about myself. And I know Kim has talked about, oh my God, my short hair and like the white eyeliner, the bad lipstick and stuff like that. But yeah, so we went to the Ad Lib Halloween party. And for those of you who, you know, again, this is all the cast members from Adventureland and Liberty Square at the Magic Kingdom. And it happens after hours. So it was on a random weeknight, a week and a half or so before Halloween. You know, it was one of the weeknights where there wasn't a Mickey's Not So Scary, obviously. And the park was closing at 7. So I think they reopened. I think the party started at 8 probably. And oh my gosh, like, it was inside the Haunted Mansion. It was inside the Haunted Mansion and the lights were turned on, and, you know, there was like snack food and non-alcoholic beverages, obviously. Like this was an entirely sober party, and still to this day, one of the best Halloween parties I've ever experienced. Probably still one of the best nights of my life. It was just so much fun because at this point, I was like you, being at Pirates, even though there were tons of CPs working at Jungle Cruise, at Pirates, it was just me and one other CP. So I had actually become really good friends by this point with a bunch of people who were full-time. And they were, you know, older than us, but I mean, there were a few that were in their 30s. Most of them were like mid-20s, I feel, mid to late 20s. And it was just like we used to actually, Kim and I, after the park hours got shortened and we were working, you know, we weren't working that late, we would go over to one of the full-time people's apartments who lived over, oh gosh, not Celebration, but close to that. I can't, Claremont. And so we would go over to Claremont, which is about, if you're driving like from the back of Magic Kingdom, it's like 20 minutes or so. And we would go over there and we would watch wrestling on Monday nights. And okay, so that's why I'm assuming that it was Sunday nights that were the big Vista Way parties. Now I'm remembering. I have to talk my way through this. So we used to go watch wrestling with these people on Monday nights, and like WWE, or well, back then it was WWF Raw, WWF Raw. And so we became, you know, they all knew Kim, but I was pretty close with these people because I worked with them every day. And because we watched wrestling together, Kim and I went as wrestlers. I was Trish Stratus, and Kim is watching this, and Kim, I don't remember who you were. Lita, maybe?
I was thinking Lita.
I think it was Lita. So when I say these were costumes, they were like quote unquote costumes, because like we didn't have costumes with us. We'd have money to go buy new costumes at Spirit Halloween or whatever, whatever like existed back then. And oh gosh, I'm looking, like I've looked back at the pictures, and I will share some. I promise I will share some. But
I don't know if you can see it on my phone. I don't know if it'll.
Hold it up. Oh, yep. Oh, yes, you can. Okay. So if you're listening to
Uh-huh.
this as a podcast, I will be sharing this picture in the blog entry for this podcast for sure. But our friend Jamie was Cleopatra, I believe. So
Yeah.
Jamie had like Jamie went out and got a legit costume, girl.
She got her like mom or dad's, like she had costumes at home, and
Oh, is that what it was? They sent it to
yeah,
her.
and mailed it to her. And I can't remember if that was like the only one. She's like, oh, I've got a costume, like I wore it last year or something, or if she had options. But I mean, I had a black T-shirt that I cut up and put safety pins in, and then I wore my jeans. And
I feel like you
didn't
were
have,
probably supposed to be Brittany.
I feel like Brittany, but like I have curly hair, so I was like, I don't know. It was just,
Who knows?
it was a last minute, just kind
Was
of like
Shakira a thing yet then? Like,
I don't know. And I had this little light up thing that you stick in your belly button, because this was,
yes, I remember that.
yeah. I had my belly button pierced, but it was
I
like you
did
glue
too.
it in, and it was like this jewel thing that, I don't know. I was a hot mess, but we still had fun.
We all were. I mean, like I said, like Kim and I, our costumes were just. I had for some reason, I had like fake leather pants, and they were like trash bag plastic. Okay, they were shiny, and they were boot cut, and like yeah, and I was in WWE or WWF at the time, Trish Stratus wore like a black tank top and like black pants like that. So it was whatever. This is who I am now. I my hair was very curly at the time, so I kind of like blow dried it out to be like, it still looked almost nothing like her hair. It was just maybe sort of like half straight. I don't know, because she had really straight, or maybe it wasn't straight, but it was like she had those loose, fancy, like I have a whole ton of like weave in my hair, like blonde weave in my hair curls. So yeah, it was our costumes were terrible, but like some of the people that we worked with, they had awesome costumes. I mean, some of my guy friends dressed up as the hitchhiking ghost. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know if I have it available, but I have a picture of them dressed as the hitchhiking ghost standing in front of the hitchhiking ghost in Haunted Mansion. And I mean, I didn't work Haunted Mansion. So seeing it with like the lights on and seeing how all of the technology worked and everything, it was so crazy to see. This is the way this has worked for, since the 70s. And it's not really technology so much as it's very, very limited sort of special effects. And it was so cool. It was so stinking cool. And I mean, I guess
my favorite part, like, I mean, we had fun at the party, and I guess they had snacks. I remember like we had like round tables and stuff that we would like sit at. But I don't know the guy's name, but he was always the like scary mansion guy. He worked like out front, never smiled, and it was just, I got pictures with him, and he was, just like, I don't even know if he had a costume. And I'm just like, oh my God, you were the scary mansion guy. And he's just like totally offended, like, really? I'm scary? Like, he's like, I'm totally cool. I'm like, no, seriously, like you do an amazing job. Like,
I think I know who you're talking about. And I think
hair.
his name, it's blonde hair. Oh, maybe not.
So.
I'm thinking of a dark hair guy, and his name was Ed, and he was definitely like outside. I'm pretty sure his name was Ed. I'll have to go back and look through like my pictures and see if I can figure out who you're talking about.
Oh my God. It was, meeting him was like, it was like a meeting.
You're just a random cast member, but like I see you all the time and you're creepy.
And like, well, Haunted Mansion was like one of my favorite rides, and just
does anybody not like Haunted Mansion? I kind of feel like if you don't like Haunted Mansion, I maybe can't be friends with you.
It's just, I mean, like the whole thing is just freaking awesome. Like, if I ever had like the opportunity, like, if I was going to do rides, that would have been. And then like you could just have an attitude, like you didn't have to be all chipper and happy, it's just like,
Yeah, we talked about that on one of the older episodes. It was either episode, I think it was episode 2. We talked about like people who got to work at Haunted Mansion or Tower of Terror, just getting to be like all the time. And apparently at some point that might have changed, or they tried to change it, where they were trying to make, Tower of Terror people smile and be friendly and stuff. And it's like, no, what? like, I get that Disney has this Disney, attitude sort of thing that they want people to abide by, but you also want people to feel immersed in the experience. And if you've got Haunted Mansion, unless they're like, like Joker style crazy, which creepy, honestly, I feel like the there are no windows and no doors, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's way better than, yeah. Like I said, that experience, just getting to.
And then we got to go like behind the scenes for the ride. That was really cool to see.
Exactly. But that's what I was saying, like getting to see technology. I use that term loosely because it is in a way technology, but it's more like very basic special effects that still to this day hold up. I'm trying to remember exactly what it was, but the dancing ghosts in the dining room ballroom scene, they are clear. I believe they're clear statues like that are spinning around on a thing behind a mirror. And it's something to do with the lighting. It's been 20 years. And to be honest, I don't think I could remember 10 years ago what exactly it was. But
I know I have pictures. I was trying to find, I had a couple that were on Facebook, but I don't have those. But I remember us like dancing with, I have pictures like dancing with, and they were like a mannequin type thing. And I think it was just kind of, it was more like their shadow or something is what's projected, because there's actual like structure, like people, like mannequins. And then I think that moved and that's what projected or something, because the ghosts weren't in the dining room. They were off underneath like the balcony or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying there was a thing to do with like glass or like two-way mirrors and lighting and something like that. It was really neat. And I actually was just looking through my pictures to see like, oh, is there a way for me to screen share these? But I'm not going to because I just realized I'm gonna have to. There's only a couple I can share because I definitely had a friend who dressed in blackface that night.
Oh.
And I'm looking at them now and I'm like, please tell me that's not what I think it is. And then I'm opening it up and looking at the comments and oh yes, it was absolutely blackface. Oh, 2001.
Yeah.
Oh, 2001. That was not okay. So anyway, that was a really fun, just a really amazing experience because that's not something that many people can say they did. It's literally the people who work in Adventureland Liberty Square and their guest if they bring one. And I mean, I think like I don't know if they do that anymore. I hope they still do.
Yeah.
I mean, COVID and stuff the past couple of years, let's ignore that and say, hopefully up until, 2019 or whatever, they were still doing that. I have a bad feeling they probably stopped it at some point, but maybe they didn't. I'd love to like talk to somebody who still actually works in ad lib and see if it's still a thing that happens. Because when I think back on the things I experienced on my college program, that is absolutely top 5 experiences. And it was a totally sober, like just hanging out with my friends, from work and also the CP, and just such a great night. Such a great night.
And for me, like being at Blizzard Beach, and there was like one other CP, and he wasn't, I think he was like from somewhere out, like, or I don't know. He was just, to me, it was weird, and we were never gonna be friends. And he may have like lived in Vista. Like we were never gonna like be friends. We were just not like, we were just opposites. And I feel like with our schedules too, it was like they had to like fill, like, it's like if I worked inside, he was over here. It's like we didn't really work together. And then, so I pretty much relied on like my roommates and then my neighbors for, interaction with, people and stuff, because at work, I wasn't with like a bunch of kids, it was just like, and then I made friends with like people who worked in the restaurant when we would take lunch. It was just behind the restaurant. But we didn't like hang out outside. So being able to go to that party was just like, for me, it was like a huge honor. Like, it's like, they got like Jamie, picked me to go. And because I didn't really, and that was the thing too, is like, trying to like find a party or something, it's like, I was kind of shy and, I think if I worked like in attractions, or if I worked like Emporium or something, you know, a bigger place in like Magic Kingdom, and I would have been around more like CPs, then, you know, I would have had more of that interaction. But, you know, I just didn't do, you know, I just wasn't exposed to any of those things with my job. So being able to do something like that was just like, whoa, this is big time, you know? And that was
Yeah.
another thing, like being in Blizzard Beach, like it's still Disney, but it had its own thing. And then being able to like do one of my favorite rides behind the scenes, go to this party and do all this, like, and you're at the freaking, you know, Magic Kingdom for this part, you know, at night, nobody else is here. Cause I remember we had to like walk there because it was at, you know, Haunted Mansion. So I
But we
remember
got to
walking around at
park.
night.
We got to park in like management parking. I
Yeah.
remember, I remember being, you know, like saying, "I'm here for the ad lib party," and like we got through, like the car got through like 3 security gates or something that I had never been through before, and it was only maybe well, like 5 years later when I was a restaurant manager in Hollywood Studios. I just like now I look back and I'm like, oh yeah, like I remember going through all of these security checkpoints and telling them what we were there for and getting the pass and getting to park in the management parking lot behind, I think it was behind like Thunder Mountain, you know, Pirates area. It was
Yeah, I don't know, but I
catty
remember
corner
walking
back
through the
there.
park, and it was like it was dark, and I guess probably when we were leaving, it was dark and like nobody was there, and just like, is this real life? Like this to me, it was just like the coolest thing because I don't, you know, I just never got to do anything like that. And I
Yeah.
remember, I guess I can talk about it now. Jamie like sneaking me into the tunnels, you know. I actually got to spend New Year's Eve. She snuck me in. Oh my gosh, I was like so nervous. I'm gonna get caught. I'm gonna get kicked out. But I like, you know, I should have gotten a freaking Oscar for my performance of, oh, I'm just going to work, you know, like, and I had no clue because like everything's color coded, and she had to work that day. And so I went in with her, and we were like in the lockers, and she's like, all right, just go straight, like go up these stairs and just like don't look at anybody. I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
ma'am, you
Just
know, like,
act like you're meant to be there.
and you know,
Well,
I'm in plain clothes.
back then they were lax about it in that you could literally just say, you know, I'm here to work an extra shift or something. You know what I mean? And even if you're not in costume, like, I mean, they want you to change in the locker rooms, but I don't necessarily know that it was required as long as you didn't go on stage not in costume. But I mean, they were a lot more lax about it back then. I mean, I know I want to say when I was a restaurant manager, it was like you could not park in Magic Kingdom cast parking unless you worked at Magic Kingdom. It absolutely did not work that way. When I like even in my 2002 program, because I picked up shifts in no shoot, actually, I drove to Magic Kingdom and parked in that cast parking lot in the summer of 2002, and I did not work there. Even when I wasn't picking up shifts in ad lib that summer. So, you know, they didn't want you there, but they were way more lax about it than they were, you know, even 5 years later. So
Because I know, well, for that time, like New Year's Eve was like a block out. You know, like you as a cast member, you couldn't go, even though I wasn't working because at that point, like I don't even maybe that's when like I stopped working, like, and I was waiting for like my next assignment because the water parks were both closed at that point. But I know I was off, and she was going to get off, you know, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock. And so I had to be in this crowded park all by myself. Not, you know, like I had to like, I felt like I had to hide from people. I remember like running into somebody that was working that knew me. And I was just like, oh my God, like,
ah.
you know, that's not me, you know, like don't turn me in. I was just so scared.
Well, the
Um,
only time it was a problem for you to be in a park was if you'd called out and you went to the parks on a day that you were supposed to be working.
well, I think I'm very like I like to follow the rules. And if you're telling me, it's one thing if like you don't really know what's going on, but when somebody says, "Hey, you know, we're going to hit capacity by like 10 o'clock in the morning. No cast members are allowed to be in this park."
Mm.
and then I get snuck in, and I'm like breaking the law. Like I was just so scared that somebody was going to like recognize me or do something, I was going to get kicked out of the program like a couple of weeks before I was done. But it totally worked out, and I got to meet up with her, and we celebrated, New Year's Eve together, and it was awesome. But I remember like, also being separate from, being over in Blizzard Beach. It's like, not used to like the tunnel system, and then like the facade of places were like offices and stuff. I remember going, like, she had to go, I don't know if it was like picking up a paycheck or maybe picking up a schedule or something. And like, we're in like Frontierland or something. And she's like walking, like it's an actual door. And we're like, okay, now this is an office. Like, what in the world? Like,
there were a lot of those. They got rid of some of them. Like the place where the Jungle Cruise, the Skipper Canteen is now, used to be one of the, the Once Upon a Time is Now training for Magic Kingdom. When they split, they like sent us all into that room. And then that was where they told us where we were actually working. And now it's a restaurant, just crazy. I ate there, and obviously the decor is completely different and everything, but I ate there and I was like, I have this weird, oh my God, this is this weird deja vu. Like the room is shaped the same, but the decor is totally different. And I remember sitting in this room in rows of chairs waiting for our actual like work assignments of where exactly in Magic Kingdom we were going to work. Right. It's so weird. Other than the Ad Lib Halloween party, I mean, I know, so you said you didn't go to any like cast member Halloween parties. So. I got really lucky. I had asked for a long weekend to go home. And it was because they were trying to get people to take like time off. It wasn't paid, obviously, but if you requested time off, it was a lot easier to get it at that point because they were trying to get people down to as few hours as possible. So I was scheduled to fly. I mean, I asked for the time off. They granted it. And then my parents bought me a plane ticket so I could go home from, I'm trying to think of it. I think the November 1st was a Friday, but it was like, I flew home on a Friday, I believe, and flew back on Sunday or Monday. I think it was Friday to Monday. So I had 2 days off in 1 week and 2 days off in the next week, And so then I worked, 10 days straight up until then, except that they didn't schedule me for October 31st. So I had the day off, and it was a Thursday, I'm 99.9% sure that October 31st, 2001 was a Thursday. And I don't even want to look at a calendar and prove myself wrong. But some of my full-time and part-time cast member friends had a party at Sable Palms, that apartment complex that was across the street from Vista. It was literally across Apopka Vinland from Vista. And so they had a party, and because I had the whole day off, I went with some of my coworkers to buy some fabric to make a new costume. And when I say make a new costume, I mean, I bought a couple yards of fabric and cut with shitty scissors a pink satin cape and a pink satin headband thing. And I was still also a wrestler. My friend Nate went as the Hurricane, and I went as Mighty Molly. They were tag team partners back in WWF 2001 era. But I mean, the people that were holding the party, like they were the other people that we watched wrestling with and everything. But they were like, one of our friends had this really awesome, is it Tiki Sam or something, like the guy at the end of the Jungle Cruise that's selling the heads. Yeah, he was a part-time cast member, I think, and he had like a costume for that and whatever. So I actually got to. It wasn't a Vista or Chatham. It wasn't a CP Halloween party, but I got to go to. I mean, it was all of Ad Lib was there, plus a bunch of people from outside of Ad Lib that I didn't even know, and so I got really, really drunk and stayed up until. I'm pretty sure my flight was early. It was at like 10 something. And I remember my friend Nate having to drive me to the airport. And like I remember having to give him money for the tolls to the airport because we were running kind of late. And I mean, I'd gotten maybe 2 hours of sleep. Like I slept on my friend's couch because Nate was sleeping there too. And it was like, we're just leaving from here tomorrow morning. And I remember like shaking Nate awake and being like, I'm so sorry, but you told me you were going to drive me to the airport. You have to drive me to the airport. And so yeah, so we got out of bed and I dragged him out of bed, whatever, couch, floor, wherever he was sleeping. And he had to drive me to the airport at, 7 a.m. And I, again, pretty sure I didn't go to bed until 5. And I remembered, like, I've been hungover on some flights, but that was possibly the worst one. Even being that young and being able to, recover the way we did back then, it was bad. But it was so fun. And I mean, I'm with you, it was me and one other CP in Pirates. So while I knew Jamie, who worked at Jungle, and I also met a few other Jungle college program people, working parade and stuff, they all had their own little clique of like Jungle Cruise college program people. And I wasn't in that, they were nice for sure. I mean, there's one guy who I worked parade with quite a bit. And the funny thing was, like, we were both blonde and he was tall and kind of slimish, built sort of like me. And I don't want to say we had similar faces because we obviously couldn't be mistaken as, identical twins, but we used to tell people that we were twins who'd been separated at birth. We got some guests believing this shit too. Yeah, we were twins separated at birth and we like discovered each other on the college program. Like you would never believe how gullible guests can be until they're believing this nonsense. But yeah, I didn't have that CP experience at work either. It was just that I got lucky and had a lot of full-time people who were willing to be friends with me. And now, to be honest, part of that might have been because I was a not unattractive, 18, 19-year-old girl who was outgoing and pretty fun, I suppose. So yeah, it was a really good, I mean, honestly, everything that happened with September 11th, it's like I had my Vista life and I had my work life, and my work life expanded into this other group of full and part-time people who I would watch wrestling with, and then who I got to hang out with at the Ad Lib Halloween party and ended up going to their actual Halloween night party because I think even the people that were working that night, I mean, not all of them were there. There were definitely some that had to work the Mickey's Not So Scary that night, but all of the ones I was close to were there. So now that I'm thinking about it, I was like, who the fuck was working in Ad Lib that night? I guess there were people. Maybe they were just everybody that I didn't care about. Like, now I feel bad.
All the old people. I don't know.
Maybe, yeah. Well, on that note, any last thoughts on, just kind of that point in time, like Halloween era, settling in for your CP, anything like that?
My program was, just a little bit different. I actually kind of crazy because like a weird thing after September 11th, I actually met somebody and got engaged. So that made things a little different as well. So thinking, this person is my soulmate and I'm 20 and, planning the rest of our lives together. So that was a little different too. But he's Brazilian. And so his program ended before ours. And just in technology back then and being able to like communicate with somebody who was in a different country, it was ridiculous. So I also had like all that and going back to like, having to like sign up for the computer lab. Not only was I trying to like do school, but I was also trying to like sign up to just like email my fiance back and forth. And, because this was 20 years ago and we didn't, now I can call and use my cell phone and it's not a big deal, but like you had calling cards and all this stuff,
oh my
that
gosh,
was a mess. So I had, that whole situation to deal with that, dealt with, just being away from home. September 11th.
Weirdly enough, I think that so my friend Kim, or my roommate Kim, was dating, I'm using that term loosely, was sort of seeing this guy who lived in building 15 at Vista, like people that we partied with. And he got a new roommate around mid-September, and I'm pretty sure it had something to do with September 11th. Like I ended up seeing him for a long time and being in a long-term relationship with him and things that I don't want to talk about. So
Yeah.
I feel you on that respect. But yeah, I can't imagine like trying to date somebody who is like international in 2001. I mean, what'd you have, like AIM, you know?
I mean, I honestly, like, for him, his job that he had, and he was older. He was 26. He was 6 years older than me. Um, he was a lawyer, but like didn't like being a lawyer. Like his dad and his brother doctors, and that was just kind of like the next. He was like, "Well, I don't want to be a doctor," because he grew up with that, and so he became a lawyer, hated it, found out about like this whole Disney thing, and was gonna like save up money. And so he was the friend that like lost all these extra hours because he worked 7 days a week. And it was actually the Tuesday after September 11th. I had my day off, and that was his first day off, and we met at the pool. And we ended up working at Blizzard Beach together. He worked in the restaurant, but never saw each other. We had the same break room, but it was just like it was all meant to be. Whatever. We're still friends, but it didn't work out. His job, he was traveling a lot. And so I was just, if I got an email, it was just like, the best day ever. And so just dealing with that. So I think that kept me from being like super social, because I was, I had my soulmate, and, and once he had to leave, it was just kind of like, I'm pretty much, hung out with Jamie and the friends, and then like, my neighbors and stuff. Like I made friends with them. But my upstairs neighbor, Jeff, he is actually, he was from Puerto Rico, but he wasn't, I guess he spoke enough English, and, like he was part of the regular program. He wasn't part of the international program.
Oh, I think Puerto Rico was considered, they weren't part of the international program. Maybe some of them were, but I actually roomed the summer of 2002. What my immediate roommate was from Kentucky, and our other 4 roommates were all from Puerto Rico. So I think that if you're from Puerto Rico, you weren't, I mean, technically it's a US territory.
Right.
So I think that's why they weren't considered international. The visas are different, if there even is one.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, especially like 20 years ago. Because there was even, but like Leo and all his roommates, they were all Brazilian, except for one guy from Texas, which was so bizarre because they're all speaking Portuguese, and this guy with his Texas accent. I'm just like, how are you dealing with this?
Was in the international like complex?
No, they all lived in Chatham.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then like once their programs, they weren't over at the same time. So they were like, some of their roommates were like leaving in different times and stuff. And I remember they had this one roommate, and his program had ended, and he had a car, but they were like sneaking him in. Like he could come in as a guest, but then he was like sleeping on, like they had already gotten like a new roommate or whatever, and like switched it out or something. So it was almost like an international program, but it was at Chatham. It was like super weird. And I think that's how they got the guy from Texas. And he might have been the one that like took over. I think his name was Marco or something. But like he was like sleeping on like the floor. They were like sneaking him in. It was like super weird. And because he couldn't like fly home, or didn't have the money to fly home or something. It was such a bizarre thing. And then like, I don't speak Portuguese, and he barely spoke English. And it was just, he's teaching me Portuguese. I'm teaching him like random words in English, he spoke enough to like, work and stuff, but it was just kind of funny, and just so bizarre.
That's so weird. Like I'd love to get someone from the international program on here. Cause like now that you say that, I feel like I also had, when I was a manager 5 years later, I had Brazilian employees who were staying at Chatham, and I was like, wait, but you're not international? Maybe that had something to do with working at Epcot. Like, I don't know. I get why people who are from Puerto Rico would have been staying in the regular apartment complexes, but Brazil? maybe they just ran out
Yeah.
of room. I guess I don't know how, I don't even remember the name of the international complex, but maybe it wasn't that big or something.
But I remember going over, like, I'm trying to think who was the friends, or maybe we just like found out that there was a party and we're just like, oh yeah, we're gonna go over guys with accents or something. And this was before I had met Leo and just hanging out and stuff. And it was just like so bizarre because I mean, it was like kind of a hodgepodge of like, accents and languages and stuff. And it's just, I mean, everybody spoke English, but like, I mean, I took Spanish and like, middle school, high school, and I, could still barely speak it. And even like my friend Jeff, Puerto Rico, he's speaking Spanish to me. And I'm just like, I don't know. And then I'm like, can you teach me some Portuguese, like to be able to talk to? And he's like, that's not my language. And I'm just like, I need help. Like, and then Leo is just kind of like, how do you say that? And he's like describing something like, yeah, he's like, that's a dresser, like you put your clothes in it, It's like, I remember lizard was like my first Portuguese word I ever learned because there was lizards everywhere in Florida.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Oh God, I know that feeling. What floor were you guys on?
The second floor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I many, many years later, like actually just a few years ago, I lived in Florida for about 2 years and we had a 1-story house and there were lizards in our house all the time. And it's like the doors are shut. We don't know how they're getting in, but there's lizards everywhere. It's fine. When I lived in, well, actually it was the same way. I lived in a 1st floor apartment when I was a manager at Disney and not at like, it was a regular apartment complex. I wasn't a college program person. So there were lizards and oh my God, palmetto bugs. My cats used to kill the crap out of them. And it's like, they had bug sprayers, but they're just everywhere in Florida. Well, on that note, I think we can close this out. Thank you so much Nikki for joining me. And hopefully you'll be able to join us. I'll be doing the holiday episode next month, and then we'll be taking December off, and then we'll be doing one in January where we're talking about like leaving the college program and how things change for us going back home, all that stuff. So again, thank you, Nikki, for joining me. Follow me across the web at Geek Saga for updates on when you can catch the next episode in my WDWCP 2001 20-year anniversary series. And again, the next episode will focus on living and working at Disney throughout the holiday season, which was absolutely insane, even in 2001. So have a lovely night, and thank you for joining us. Bye, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Saga podcast. If you like what you heard, please check out other Geek Saga entertainment endeavors, including the Sagas and Sass webcast and podcast and Ice and Fire Con.